Hey voters, Anthony Haslage, the internet politician here. Before I begin, do not forget to like and subscribe to keep up to date on new content. So we're diving back into my political positions document, and we're at contraception. One of those more or less, if you're pro-life, pro-choice, maybe you are or aren't for contraception. Now, again, this is my view. Unless reproduction is the goal, both parties should engage in measures to reduce the chance of unplanned pregnancy and the spread of diseases. Although I realize in that sentence it sounds like, well, if you are willing to reproduce, take the diseases as they come, but hopefully you understand what I mean here. If this means discussing who is taking the appropriate contraceptive measures beforehand, have at it, because you're an adult, you should be able to have this conversation. And if there is no agreement on a possible end result, then maybe the act should not occur. While I think adoption is a great thing, there is a lot of kids that people had that are now in the system that, and I know this sounds bad because people don't talk about it, but a lot of the kids in the adoption system were not planned. I guess that is also a hot take, but I feel like if most people who have kids, planned or otherwise, will love them and will take care of them and will help them grow. But then there are people who, in both scenarios, are the opposite. And then you think, well, there's a lot of kids in the system who weren't given that nurture. And then you have to come to realize that maybe the parents really didn't want to have them after all. But that's why we have the adoption system. So people who couldn't have kids of their own or have more love to give can have kids. But contraception should not be a religious thing. It should be a safety thing. It should be an economic thing. It should be above other considerations in family planning. And also, for the sake of our population and the related resources that would be consumed if we did not, we should take preemptive measures to inform our citizens about diseases and pregnancy before it is too late. Obviously, I do not condone the forced feeding of the information. It should be your choice. We should make the resources available to access as needed. There is a lot of research that confirms what Ben Franklin says about an ounce of prevention being worth a pound of cure. Statistically, prevention costs 7 times less than reaction and is often more effective. So think about that. That is voting with your checkbook there. But instead, it's a condom instead of money. So then we go into courts and law enforcement. The judge's job, or the judiciary, I'm going to mispronounce that, judiciary, their job is to interpret the laws. The police's job is to enforce the laws. The legislative, or the Congress's, or the city council's job is to create the law. The executive, the president, the mayor, the governor, their job is to enact the laws. Checks and balances exist to prevent one group from performing the job of the other. So and I mentioned this during the Constitution segment a couple episodes ago, where if one party had control of everything, while things would get done fast, it may not necessarily be the best for everybody. And I say that keeping in mind that right now in the United States government, we have a Democratic president. We have a Senate that is split fairly evenly, although I question a couple of candidates, particularly Joe Manchin and Romney, because Manchin and Romney, I'm not quite sure where they are. I feel like they're more center than they are left and right. But then we think about the Constitution and that our laws are important documents that should be utilized as needed and as intended. Legal decisions should be based on the law, and the purpose of law enforcement is to provide citizens a safe environment where their lives and property are protected. People, despite the fact of otherwise, feel like in the last 2 years, particularly members of law enforcement, I know some great cops, like, don't get me wrong here, but a few have been just bad at their jobs and have taken the law into their hand. The reason why law is split up amongst 3 different groups is because not everybody should have the power to be everything. It should not be a thing. So while black lives do matter, blue lives also matter. Technically, all lives should matter, but we need to keep a society in this United States that benefits the most people. It's really hard to try to cover 100%. Like, even in statistics, 95% is acceptable. So you kind of have to look at the greater good for pretty much everything. And there are ethical and moral theories about the greater good. I'm not even going to go into them because that is a whole other discussion I don't want to have. I want to say Immanuel Kant. Go look him up. That is some reading right there. That guy, woof. But that's why, like, from our government, the legislative, executive, judicial branches, down federal, the national, local, state, all of that have the same format. And so far, it has kind of worked for the last 250 years. And I would love to see it keep going because for the last, almost a year now, we've had there's going to be a civil war. Well, probably not. I mean, I would hope that the United States government has learned from the first Civil War. That is all the time we have for today, voters. Remember, a good voter is an informed voter who can think for themselves. Do not forget to check out my previous videos on this channel, as well as like and subscribe to keep up to date on any new content.